I'm going to kind of combine a couple of questions. I think they're probably kind of related, but the essence of this question is, do you have any advice in particular for recent converts to Orthodoxy as regards the potential baggage of problematic hermeneutics that they bring with them?
Well, when I joined the Orthodox Church, and you notice I'm not saying became Orthodox. I was told it takes about 10 years to kind of grow through all your non-Orthodox ideas. So it's something to keep in mind. Get advice from your priest. First of all, have some humility. Realize you are a beginner. You don't know everything. You can't evaluate everything accurately. So get advice, give yourself time, read some basic commentaries, those volumes by Blessed Theophylact. Those are excellent. He kind of, in a way, summarizes St. John Chrysostom. We don't really have a very accessible, good translation of Chrysostom's commentaries, except for the excerpts that my excellent husband has done. So you can read those too. But as far as an actual commentary, read my book, The Soul's Longing. That should be very helpful, actually. There's other books if you don't understand why the fathers use allegorical interpretation and you don't want to read my book, which explains that. A book called Sanctified Vision by R.R. Reno and O'Keefe. That gives a good explanation of patristic methods of exegesis. Because I know it used to be when students would come, in the long ago times, as they say, sometimes they had trouble with the patristic commentaries because it's so different from what they were used to, particularly if they were Protestant. So, if that's your concern, you can read a book like that or my book to get away from that. And basically stay away from controversial topics and just try to live the faith, live the gospel. I think that's the best advice for everybody. I know I can say when I was coming back to the U.S., I asked St. Sophrony for some advice. And one of the things that he said, which you can kind of expand more broadly, he said, don't worry about the calendar. That's on the bishops. So basically, decisions that bishops make, you don't have to worry about that. They're responsible for that. And anyway, that monastery's basic approach is just be faithful, live the gospel, and unless your bishop's telling you something really clearly heretical or immoral, just do what they're saying, and they will bear any consequences.
Yep.
Anyway.
That's good. That's good. I'm glad to hear that story about Saint Sophrony. Yeah, that's good. I know it's been a while since you worked on, and this is outside of your area of specialty, but was there anything from your work on the book regarding married saints of the church that you that you took away, kind of chief insights, things that struck you, maybe that might be particularly useful, I guess, to married folk in the world.
Well, probably the main general thing that I could say is just what a variety. You have all kinds of people living all kinds of different lives, different places, many, many paths. You just have to try to be faithful where you are, who you are. And we see many times that somebody really is kind of propelled to a recognized sanctity by a great tragedy, like the death of their children or husband or something like that. So we also know from just from the teaching of the church and from various other things, many people can attain holiness and we won't ever know about them.
Yeah.
So the goal isn't to be known. The goal is to attain holiness.
Yeah.
To become holy. So, and you can do that anywhere, anytime, with any situation. You can have a horrible husband. You can have a wonderful husband. You're on the same page. You can have a husband who's a different religion. We even have that. You can be Papa Dimitri Gagastakis. He has that kind of charming Greek thing. I don't know if you're familiar with him.
Yeah.
He says, the devil almost got me through Presbytera. He had such a difficult wife, But then in the end, she became a great supporter and they ended up being wonderful partners. Father Zacharias himself said, I think it took his parents 15 years to figure out how to be a good couple, let's say, happy together.
Mm-hmm.
So he said people give up too easily. And then by the time I think the father was dying, he was just thanking God for this wonderful wife he was given. And, so whatever your case, you can have a good chance of being holy.
Yeah. So I thought it would be valuable to talk about you don't have to name names or specific, talk about specifics, but maybe general principles for living in the church and kind of ways to deal with, the things that can go wrong and so on. So.
Yeah, well, the thing that came to my mind is that we've seen a lot of students come and go during these times of kind of highs and lows. And sometimes we've had problems in the administration or whatever. But I think consistently, what has struck me is that the experience you have depends a great deal on what you bring to it, on your own attitude. And we see that the more mature students benefit from every situation. Ones who aren't so mature can have a real problem, and it can kind of derail people sometimes. So, like Saint Mark the Ascetic said, one of my favorite sayings. If you know how to buy and sell, you can make a profit on everything. And to just remember that the church is a hospital and for sinners. And some people have more obvious sins than others. But we can still benefit from whatever situation we find ourselves in. Also, I would just say that sometimes God just doesn't allow some people to see certain things. There were things going on here that we never were aware of. And someone who left said, I didn't tell you because I didn't want you to leave. So, there's that kind of thing too.
So I guess the last question is related to that. I don't know if there's anything else, any advice that you would give to laymen interested in attending seminary and considering the priesthood based on your time there and the things people you met.
You know what came to my mind? We just happened to visit Owood City Monastery, and Mother Christophorus shared with us from a new book on Father Roman Braga that he was asked, when young men would ask him about becoming a monk, he would first say to them, well, go home and live as a monk first. Because if you can't do that at home, you won't be able to do it in a monastery. And I think in a way, that's a really good thing if you're thinking about being a priest. Start living like a priest. You are a priest. You're part of the royal priesthood. So start living like that now wherever you are. Live a life of self-sacrificial love. Try to love others with the love of Christ. Be the hands of Christ in the world. So the sacramental priesthood is just a more intensified, special form of the priesthood we all have. And think about how do you handle difficult people in your life? You're going to have really difficult people if you're in a parish. People who are going to act like spoiled teenagers with their father. They're going to be unappreciative. How are you going to feel about being unappreciated? Are you tough enough, to really take on that role? Can you set appropriate boundaries? Is your marriage strong? You need a very strong marriage because it's a tough life. You'll have a lot more intense spiritual warfare. So just be sure you're ready for the battle by starting to engage in it more wherever you are now. So I guess that would be what I would say.